The rain came down.
Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a boy named Tayo. He was kind, gentle, and loved his mother very much. His mother was sick, but she always smiled at him. One day, his mother called him close. She gave him a small wooden box. "Tayo," she said softly, "open this only when your heart is broken." Tayo cried and held her hand. She wiped his tears and whispered, "I will always be with you." Then she closed her eyes and did not wake up again. Tayo was all alone. No father, no mother, no brother, no sister. Just the little box and his mother's words in his heart. He buried his mother under the big tree behind their hut. Every night he sat there and looked at the stars. People in the village felt sad for Tayo, but they were poor too. No one could take him in, so he learned to take care of himself. Tayo lived in a small, broken hut. He ate fruits from trees and drank from the stream. He wore his old clothes again and again. Each morning, he cleaned the village square to get a little food from the chief. He did not complain. He smiled and worked hard. Many boys laughed at him. They called him dirty and poor. But Tayo just looked at the sky and remembered his mother's smile. At night, he talked to her in his heart. "Mama, I miss you. I want to make you proud. I want to be strong." He slept on a mat under a thin blanket. Cold wind came in, but he never cried. He was a brave boy. Years passed. Tayo grew taller and stronger. He was still poor, but his heart was full of hope. One sunny morning, a big drum sounded in the village. A royal messenger came on a horse. He shouted, "Hear this! The princess will choose a husband." Every young man in the land was invited. The royal family wanted a kind, brave, and wise man for their daughter. All the young men in the village were excited. They washed their clothes, cut their hair, and dreamed of living in the palace. Tayo looked down at his torn shirt. He had no shoes, no fine clothes, but something in his heart said, "Try." That night, he sat by his mother's grave. "Mama," he whispered, "should I go?" The wind blew gently, like her hand on his head. He opened the small wooden box. Inside, there was a beautiful outfit, shining slippers and a note. "My son, when your heart is ready, wear this with courage." The next morning, Tayo put on the clothes from the box. They fit perfectly. He looked in the stream and saw a handsome young man. People stared as he walked through the village. "Is that Tayo?" they whispered. He smiled and walked with grace. He joined the other young men heading to the palace. Some laughed at him. "The poor boy thinks he can marry the princess." But Tayo kept walking. His heart was calm. His mother's love was his strength. They walked for 3 days and reached the palace gates. Guards looked at each man and let them inside. Tayo stepped into the palace. It was big and shiny. He whispered, "Mama, I'm here." All the young men stood in a large hall. They waited to see the princess. Some were nervous. Some were proud. Then she entered. She wore a dress like the morning sun. Her smile was warm. Her eyes were kind. Tayo looked at her and felt something deep in his heart. He bowed his head. She looked at him and paused. The king said, "Each of you will do a task. The princess will watch. She will choose the one who wins her heart." The first task was to climb the tallest tree and bring down a golden fruit. Many boys fell. Some gave up. Tayo closed his eyes. He climbed slowly, like he used to climb trees for fruits in the village. He got the golden fruit. The next day, the second task was announced. The young men had to solve a hard riddle. The riddle was, "I follow you always, but you can never catch me. What am I?" Many boys gave wrong answers. Some said wind, some said time. Tayo thought deeply. Then he said, "A shadow." The royal judge nodded. "Correct." The princess smiled again. Tayo felt shy. He looked down, but inside he felt a little happy. The next test was not a race or a riddle. It was a simple walk through the palace garden. Along the path, old women sat with baskets. Some were tired, some were sad. Many boys walked past quickly. Some laughed. But Tayo stopped to help. He picked up fallen fruits and gave smiles. One woman dropped her stick. Tayo picked it up and gave it back with both hands. The princess saw everything from the window. She smiled again, but said nothing. Tayo did not know he was being watched. He was just being kind, like his mother taught him. One sunny morning, the princess left the palace quietly. She wore a simple cloak and covered her face with a veil. She wanted to see how the young men behaved when they didn't know she was the princess. Her heart was looking for someone kind and good. She wanted a husband who cared for others. The market was full of life. People shouted about fruits, fish, and clothes. The princess walked slowly, watching and listening. Some men were strong and handsome, but they were rude to the poor. Some had fine clothes, but they looked down on old people. The princess shook her head and kept walking. She saw a boy carrying a heavy basket. No one helped him. Suddenly, a young man ran to help the boy. It was the boy from the forest, the same one who gave food to the old woman. He smiled and carried the basket, The princess watched him from behind a stall. Her heart beat fast. She remembered his kind eyes. Later, an old man dropped his cane. The young man quickly picked it up and helped him walk. People were surprised, but the young man didn't care. He was just kind. The princess smiled under her veil. "He is special," she whispered to herself. She followed him quietly until he left the market. He didn't know someone royal was watching him. He just went about his day, helping where he could. The princess returned to the palace with joy in her heart. She now had hope. Maybe she had found the man she had been waiting for. That night, she told her father, "The king, I saw someone today. He is not rich, but his heart is golden." The king smiled and said, "Then let us test him again. A good heart will always shine, even in secret." The princess nodded, ready to see him again soon. The next day, the princess asked her trusted maid to send a secret message to the young man. The message was written on fine paper, but it didn't say who sent it. It simply said, "You are invited to the royal garden. Come at sunset. Wear your best clothes." The young man was surprised when he got the note. He had never received such a letter before. He didn't know who sent it or why. He looked at his simple clothes. They were clean but old. Still, he decided to go. He washed himself, brushed his hair, and wore the best shirt he had. At sunset, he reached the royal gate. The guards looked at him confused, but one of them had the same letter. They let him in quietly. The garden was big and full of beautiful flowers. The sun was turning gold, and the air smelled sweet. He felt shy, but walked in slowly. The princess was already there, sitting on a stone bench under a tree. She was dressed in a simple gown, not like a royal. She smiled when she saw him. "Hello," she said gently. The young man bowed. "Hello, miss," he replied, not knowing she was the princess. They talked for a long time. She asked him about his life, his dreams, and what he believed in. He said, "I believe in kindness. I believe in helping others even if no one sees." She looked at him with soft eyes. Her heart was full of joy. When it got dark, she stood up and said, "Thank you for coming." He smiled and said, "Thank you for the time." He left the garden without knowing who she truly was. But the princess knew in her heart, this was the man she wanted to marry. The princess could not stop thinking about the young man. His gentle words, his kind heart, and his simple smile stayed in her mind. She had met many rich and powerful men, but none touched her heart like this one. She knew now he was the one she wanted to marry. The next day, the king and queen called her to the throne room. They said, "Many noble men are waiting to see you." You must choose one soon." But the princess stood tall and said, "I have already made my choice." The king looked surprised. "Who is he?" he asked. The princess took a deep breath. "He is not rich or noble. He is a kind young man who helps people and lives simply. I met him in the garden. I want to marry him." The queen's mouth opened in shock. "But he has no title, no land," she cried. The princess gently replied, "But he has a good heart. That is what matters to me." The king was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "If this man is truly kind and noble in spirit, bring him to the palace. We must meet him ourselves." The princess smiled and nodded. "Thank you, Father," she said softly. That evening, the same maid brought another message to the young man. This time it said, "Come to the palace tomorrow. The princess wishes to see you again." His heart beat fast. He didn't know why, but he felt something big was about to happen. He stayed up all night, wondering what to wear, what to say, and why a princess would want to meet someone like him again. He thought of his mother and wished she were still alive. Maybe she would be proud of him now. He looked up and whispered, "Mama, please guide me." The next morning, the young man washed his face, combed his hair, and wore the neatest clothes he had. They were simple, but clean. He walked slowly to the palace, wondering if this was all a dream. When he reached the gates, the guards were already waiting for him. They led him into the grand hall where the king, queen, and princess were sitting. He bowed low, feeling nervous. The princess smiled warmly at him. "Thank you for coming," she said kindly. Her voice made him feel calm. The king looked at him closely. "Tell us," the king said. "Who are you? What do you do? Why do you think you deserve to marry a princess?" The young man took a deep breath. "I am nobody special," he said. "I live a quiet life. I help where I can, and I try to be honest and kind. I never thought I would meet a princess." The queen frowned. "A princess must marry someone important, someone who can protect her and rule beside her." But the princess stepped forward and said, "He may not be rich, but he is strong in heart. He has kindness, courage, and respect for all people. That is what I want." The king looked at his daughter. He saw that she was serious. He had never seen her speak with so much strength. He sighed and said, "Very well. If you truly believe this is the man for you, I will not stop you. But he must prove himself worthy first." The princess nodded. "Let him live in the palace for a short time," she said. "Let everyone see who he really is. The king agreed. The young man was surprised but grateful. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said. "I will do my best." The young man moved into a small room in the palace. It was the biggest room he had ever slept in. He was given clean clothes, food to eat, and many people watched him. Every day, he helped the workers in the garden, the cooks in the kitchen, and the guards at the gate. Many servants in the palace laughed at him. "He is just a poor boy," they whispered. "He does not belong here." But the young man did not listen. He worked hard, smiled often, and treated everyone kindly. Even the old stable master said, "This boy has a good heart." The princess watched him from her window. She saw how he helped a maid carry water. She saw him feed the horses and clean the yard. She smiled and said to her parents, "Look at him. He is kind to everyone, even those who mock him." One day, a test was planned. The queen asked a royal advisor to drop a tray of gold coins in front of the young man. The coins rolled everywhere. The young man quickly helped to pick them up. He gave each one back without keeping any. The advisor nodded and told the queen, "He is honest." The king gave him another test. He asked him to care for an injured bird. The young man fed the bird, made a small nest, and stayed with it until it flew again. "He is gentle and patient," the king said quietly to himself. At the end of the week, the princess stood before the court and said, "You have seen who he is. I will not choose anyone else. He is the one I want to marry." The room fell silent. Then the king slowly nodded. "Very well," he said. "He has passed the tests." The palace was full of whispers. "Is it true?" some asked. "The princess will marry a poor boy?" Many nobles were upset. They had sent their sons to marry the princess. Now a village boy had won her heart. But the princess did not care. She had made her choice. The king called a royal meeting. All the noble families were invited. He stood with the queen and the princess by his side. The young man stood near them, dressed in simple but clean clothes. His eyes looked down. He was nervous, but his heart was pure. The king spoke with a strong voice. "My daughter has chosen a husband. She has chosen not by riches or power, but by kindness, truth, and hard work." Some nobles frowned, others looked away, but a few nodded with respect. "This is a good lesson," one said. Then the queen smiled. She added, "We tested him. We watched him. He showed us what true honor means." The princess held the young man's hand. She looked around the room and said, "He is the one I trust. He is the one I will marry." The nobles had no more to say. The people in the palace began to cheer. The servants smiled, the guards clapped their hands. The poor boy who once lived in a small hut was now going to marry the princess of the land. Later that evening, the princess and the young man sat under the stars. "Are you afraid?" she asked him softly. He smiled and said, "A little, but with you beside me, I am strong." She squeezed his hand. "We will face everything together." And under the moonlight, their journey as partners began. The palace became very busy. Everyone was getting ready for the wedding. Tailors came to sew new clothes. Cooks planned a big feast. The whole kingdom was talking about the big day. But most of all, they were talking about the groom, the simple boy who had won the princess's heart. The young man still helped in the village during the day. He didn't forget where he came from. He visited his neighbors and gave food to those who had none. Many people loved him. They said, "He is still humble. He has not changed." That made the princess love him even more. The princess was also busy. She wanted the wedding to be special but not too fancy. She told the palace workers, "Let it be simple and beautiful. I want all people, rich and poor, to enjoy the day." The queen was proud of her daughter. "You have a heart like your mother," she said. One evening, the young man stood by his mother's grave. He wore the fine clothes given to him by the king, but he carried his mother's old necklace in his hand. "Mother," he whispered, "you dressed me well. Your love brought me here. Thank you." A soft wind blew. It felt like she was smiling. Back in the palace, the king called the young man to his private room. "You will marry my daughter," the king said, "so I will teach you how to be a good leader." The young man listened carefully. He wanted to be wise, kind, and just. As the wedding day came closer, joy filled the kingdom. The people were excited. They cleaned their homes, wore their best clothes, and sang happy songs. This was not just a wedding. It was a story of love, kindness, and dreams that came true. The sun rose bright and golden. Birds sang sweet songs in the trees. It was the wedding day. The whole kingdom was awake early. People rushed to the palace with gifts and flowers. The air was full of joy. Today, the princess would marry the kind young man. Inside the palace, the princess got ready. Her dress was simple but very beautiful. It sparkled like morning dew. Her hair was tied with ribbons of gold. She smiled and said, "I want to look just like every other happy girl." Her maid said she looked like a dream. The young man wore a royal robe, but under it, he had the plain shirt his mother had sewn long ago. It reminded him of where he came from. He looked at himself in the mirror and whispered, "Thank you, Mama. You helped me reach this day." The wedding took place in the palace garden. Flowers were everywhere. The king and queen sat on golden chairs. The people sat on soft mats. The birds flew over their heads. A kind old priest spoke blessings. Then the princess and the young man joined hands and smiled. The princess said, "I marry you not because you are rich, but because you are kind." The young man replied, "And I marry you not because you are royal, but because you are good." The crowd clapped and cheered. Some even cried happy tears. After the wedding there was music, dancing, and food. The young man and princess danced together. The villagers danced too. The king said, "This is a new day for our land. Love has won." Everyone agreed. It was the most beautiful wedding the kingdom had ever seen. After the wedding, the young man and the princess moved into a new home in the palace. It was a small, lovely house inside the royal garden. The princess said, "I don't want a big palace. I want a simple home filled with love." The young man agreed with a smile. Their home had flowers by the windows and birds that came to sing each morning. The young man planted vegetables, and the princess watered them. They did many things together. They laughed a lot and helped each other with joy. Every day felt peaceful. The villagers often came to visit. The young man always welcomed them with food and a kind word. The princess listened to their problems and helped find answers. The people loved them both more and more. "They are not just royals," the villagers would say. "They are family." The young man never forgot his mother. He kept her wooden spoon in the kitchen and her sewing cloth by the bed. At night, he would tell the princess stories about his childhood. The princess loved hearing about his mother and often wished she had met her. The princess also shared her dreams with him. She wanted to build schools, heal the sick, and care for the poor. The young man promised to help her. "We will do good things together," he said. And they did. Slowly, the kingdom started changing for the better. Their love was strong, not because of gold or power, but because they truly cared for one another. They were kind, honest, and full of hope. The people said, "This is the love we all dream of." And the couple promised never to let pride or riches come between them. One day, a terrible storm came to the kingdom. The rain poured for many days, rivers overflowed, and many homes were lost. The villagers were afraid. They cried out for help, and the young man and the princess quickly went to work. The young man took off his royal clothes and wore simple ones. He helped carry food, fix roofs, and save animals. The princess gave her own blankets to cold children. She walked in the mud, holding people's hands and praying with them. Everyone was amazed. But some people in the palace were not happy. They said, "The princess is acting like a servant. This is shameful." They tried to make the king angry, but the king only said, "She has a good heart. That is the kind of queen our people need." One night, as they rested, the young man looked at the princess and said, "You could have stayed inside the palace. Why did you come out to help?" She smiled and said, because I love my people, and I love you. We are in this together. The storm passed after a week. The sky became clear, and the sun returned. But the hearts of the people had changed forever. They saw that the young man and the princess were not just rulers. They were protectors, helpers, and true friends. From that day, no one ever questioned their love again. Even the doubters in the palace became silent. The people trusted them more than ever. The young man and the princess held hands and knew in their hearts that love is strongest when tested by storm.